I stood frozen at the edge of the masquerade hall, my fingers trembling around a flute of untouched Prosecco. The grand estate in upstate New York buzzed with life, golden masks glittering under chandeliers, laughter echoing off marble floors, the scent of lavender and champagne hanging heavy in the air. My mother, Elise, stood at the center of it all, her sapphire gown shimmering like a peacock's tail, her voice a melody of charm as she entertained her elite guests. My older brother, Julian, a rising cardiologist, adjusted his velvet mask while chatting with the senator. My younger sister, Margot, an aspiring fashion designer, twirled in a crimson dress, her laughter bright as she posed for photos. And me? I was Elena, the forgotten middle child, a freelance photographer who'd spent months planning this charity masquerade for Elisa's foundation. I'd poured my heart into every detail, the string quartet, the hand-painted masks, the ice sculptures, but I might as well have been a ghost. Welcome to the channel where we unravel the raw, unfiltered truths behind betrayal and redemption. Tonight, my story will pull you into a world of glittering lies and quiet justice. I'd arrived early, my emerald dress clinging to my skin, a silver mask hiding the nervous hope in my eyes. In my hand was a small gift for Elise, a vintage locket I'd found at an estate sale, engraved with her initials, a piece I'd spent weeks tracking down. I wanted her to see me, really see me for once. But as I approached, she waved me off without a glance. Put it on the table, Elena, she snapped, her tone sharp, like I was a caterer interrupting her spotlight. The table was a shrine of luxury, diamond bracelets, imported wines, a sculpture worth more than my car. My locket looked like a child's trinket beside them. I swallowed the lump in my throat, forcing a smile, but inside, I felt the familiar ache of being invisible, a hollow pang that echoed years of being overlooked. The evening unraveled like a slow bleed. I lingered near the dessert table, the sugary scent of macarons cloying in the air, watching guests in their glittering costumes dance and mingle. Julian bragged about his latest medical conference in Paris, his voice booming with pride, his gestures wide as he recounted a life-saving surgery. The patient flatlined twice, he said, his tone smug, but I brought them back. Margot gushed about her internship with a Milan designer, her hands fluttering like butterflies as she described silk fabrics and runway shows, her eyes alight with dreams of fame. The designer said I'm a natural, she chirped, her voice bright with self-assurance. Elise beamed at them, her eyes glowing with a warmth I'd never felt, her sapphire gown catching the chandelier light like a beacon. I tried to join the conversation, my voice small as I mentioned a photo series I'd shot for a local shelter. It got featured in a small magazine, I said, clutching my Prosecco flute like a lifeline. Margot rolled her eyes, her crimson lips curling into a smirk. That's quaint, she sneered, turning back to her admirers with a toss of her hair. Elise didn't even pretend to hear me. She just handed Julian another glass of Prosecco and laughed at his joke, her hand resting on his shoulder with a tenderness that felt like a slap. I retreated to a shadowed corner, the weight of their dismissal pressing against my chest like a stone. The hall's opulence felt suffocating, the flickering candlelight casting eerie shadows on the walls, the clink of crystal glasses grating on my nerves, the rustle of silk gowns sounding like whispers of exclusion. It was all a facade, a mask as hollow as the ones we wore. Above the grand staircase, a new display caught my eye, framed portraits of Julian and Margot, both in gilded frames. Julian in his white coat, holding a stethoscope, his smile confident and assured. Margot on a runway, mid-stride, her designs sparkling under lights, her pose radiating ambition. Where my portrait used to hang, a candid shot from my first gallery opening, me in a borrowed dress, clutching my camera with a shy smile, was nothing. Just a blank wall, as if I'd been erased from the family's legacy. My throat tightened, a sharp pain blooming behind my eyes, my vision blurring at the edges. I'd always known I was the spare, the one who didn't fit their polished narrative, but seeing it so starkly felt like a knife twisting in my gut, each turn carving out a piece of the hope I'd clung to for years. I thought back to a moment years ago when I was 16, sitting on the porch with my late grandmother, Nana Rose. The summer air had been thick with the scent of honeysuckle, the cicadas humming a lazy song. She'd held my hand, her fingers gnarled but warm, her voice soft but firm. You're enough, Elena. Don't let them dim your light, she'd said, her eyes fierce with love. She'd left me a small inheritance, a fund meant for my dreams, maybe a photography studio or a trip to document stories in far-off places. But I'd never seen a cent of it. Elise always said it was tied up in investments, her tone dismissive, as if my dreams were a childish whim. I'd believed her. I trusted her, even when the doubts crept in, even when I saw Julian driving a new BMW while I took the bus, even when Margot bragged about her studio space while I shot photos in my cramped apartment. That trust had been eroding for years, chipped away by every ignored milestone, every cold glance, every time I begged for help and got nothing while my siblings were showered with support. Dinner was a parade of excess caviar canapes, truffle risotto, tiny edible flowers on porcelain plates, each dish a testament to wealth I'd never touched. I sat at the far end of the table next to a bored investor who barely acknowledged me, his eyes glued to his phone as he scrolled through stock updates. The conversation swirled around me, all about Julian's brilliance, Margot's creativity, Elisa's philanthropy. No one asked about me. Not even my father, Henry, who sat silently across the table, his eyes fixed on his plate, his fork moving mechanically. He'd always been a bystander in Elisa's kingdom, too weak to challenge her, too passive to notice the daughter fading into the background. I pushed my food around, the taste of rejection bitter on my tongue, the risotto turning to ash in my mouth. I felt like a prop in their perfect tableau, a placeholder they tolerated but never valued, my presence as ornamental as the ice sculptures melting in the corner. The toast came after dessert, the air thick with the scent of espresso and anticipation. Elise stood, her mask removed, her face radiant under the lights, her sapphire earrings glinting like stars. The room hushed, all eyes on her, the queen of the masquerade. "To my incredible children," she said, her voice dripping with pride, each word a polished gem. "Julian, my healer. Margot, my artist. You make me so proud." She paused, her gaze sweeping the room like a spotlight, and my heart stuttered. Maybe this time, maybe she'd say my name, maybe she'd see me. But then she turned to me, her smile cold, her eyes glinting with something cruel, and whispered just loud enough for the table to hear, "I've always loved my children, except you, Elena." A ripple of laughter spread through the guests, nervous at first, then cruel, a chorus of judgment that echoed in my ears. Julian smirked, raising his glass, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "To the real family," he added, his voice a dagger. Margot giggled behind her hand, her crimson nails catching the light, her laughter a sharp, mocking trill. Henry looked away, his jaw tight, his silence louder than any words. I felt the room shrink, the air sucked out of my lungs, my vision blurring at the edges as if the world itself was closing in. But I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. Something inside me snapped into place, a quiet fury I'd buried for years, rising like a phoenix from the ashes of my broken hope. I stood, my chair scraping against the marble floor, the sound harsh in the sudden silence. My hands shook, but my voice was steady, a calm born of years of suppressed rage. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small memory card, no bigger than a postage stamp, its black surface gleaming ominously in the candlelight. I'd found it by chance a month ago, tucked into a mislabeled folder on Elisa's laptop while I was uploading event photos. It held everything: financial records, emails, forged documents. Proof that Elise had drained my inheritance to fund Julian's career, Margot's designs, even this masquerade. Thousands of dollars siphoned away while I struggled to pay rent, while I shot weddings to make ends meet, while I believed their lies. I'd spent nights poring over the files, my anger growing with every page, each revelation a fresh wound. I'd planned to confront her privately, to demand answers in the quiet of her study, but her words tonight changed everything. They lit a match to the gasoline of my resentment, and I was ready to let it burn. I walked to Elisa's side, my heels clicking like a metronome, each step a declaration of intent. A guest's glass paused midair, their eyes flicking toward me, the string quartet's music faltering for a beat, as if the room itself sensed the shift. Her clutch rested on the table beside her, a sleek black bag studded with crystals, a perfect accessory for her perfect lie. She was still laughing, basking in her moment, her head tilted back as she accepted a compliment from a guest. "You dropped something," I said, my voice low, a whisper that carried the weight of a scream, as I slipped the memory card into her bag. Her brow furrowed, her laughter faltering for a moment, her fingers tightening around her Prosecco flute as she glanced at me, a flicker of unease in her eyes. I didn't wait for a response. I turned, my emerald dress swishing around my legs, and crossed the hall, the eyes of the guests burning into my back like hot coals. "Elena, where are you going?" Henry called, his voice weak, a feeble attempt at concern. I didn't answer. I grabbed my coat from the rack, the velvet heavy in my hands, and stepped into the crisp October night. The estate's gardens stretched out before me, moonlight glinting off the frost-kissed roses, their petals silver in the dark. I took a deep breath, the cold air sharpened my lungs, slicing through the haze of my anger, and felt a weight lift. I wasn't running. I was choosing myself. I drove through the winding roads, the estate fading in my rearview mirror, its golden lights shrinking to pinpricks in the distance. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat. Elise, Julian, Margot, one after another, their names lighting up the screen like warning signals, each buzz a jolt to my already frayed nerves. I let it ring, the sound a faint hum against the roar of my thoughts, my knuckles white on the steering wheel as the city lights blurred past me. I remembered the nights I'd cried myself to sleep, wondering why I wasn't enough, my pillow damp with silent tears, the darkness of my tiny apartment swallowing me whole. The times I'd sent money to Margot for emergencies, skipping meals to afford it, only to see her post photos in designer shoes the next day, her smile wide and unapologetic. The way Elise had sighed when I asked for help with a broken camera lens, saying, "We can't afford that right now," her voice dripping with irritation while Julian got a new watch the next week, its gold band gleaming on his wrist as he showed it off at brunch. The memory card was my line in the sand, a declaration that I was done being their doormat. It linked to a cloud drive with every file, every transaction, and a note, "Some masks can't hide the truth." I pulled into a diner off the highway, the neon sign flickering in the dark, its red glow casting an eerie light on the cracked pavement. The diner smelled of burnt coffee and fried onions, the kind of place where the jukebox played songs from a decade ago, their melodies a faint hum of nostalgia. I slid into a vinyl booth, the seat creaking under me, and ordered a coffee, the mug warm against my cold hands, its heat a small comfort in the storm of my thoughts. My phone was a storm of notifications. 22 missed calls. Texts piling up like leaves in a storm. Each one a desperate attempt to pull me back into their web. Elisa's first message was a sharp, "What did you do?" Her words dripping with accusation, as if I were the one who'd wronged her. Julian's was a threat, "You'll pay for this." His tone a mirror of the arrogance I'd always despised. His words echoing the times he'd dismissed me as too sensitive. Margot's was a whine. "Why are you doing this to us?" As if she were the victim in this twisted play, her plea a stark contrast to the way she'd laughed at Elisa's toast. I sipped the coffee, the bitterness matching my mood, and let the silence settle, the hum of the diner's fluorescent lights grounding me. For the first time, I felt in control, a quiet power coursing through me, a storm they couldn't outrun. I paused, staring at the steam rising from my coffee, and thought about what you'd do in my shoes. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you loved? Someone who was supposed to protect you? Drop your story in the comments. I'm here, and I'm listening. I want to know how you found your strength. The next morning, my inbox was chaos. A flood of messages that felt like a tidal wave crashing over me. Friends, cousins, even a local journalist who'd caught wind of the story. Their words a mix of shock and curiosity, each one a reminder of the bomb I'd dropped. Elise had opened the memory card, and the fallout was swift, a domino effect I'd set in motion with a single calculated move. She tried to spin it, of course, her damage control as calculated as her lies. A text from a mutual friend showed her Instagram post. "Family drama is heartbreaking. Some choose bitterness over love." The irony made me laugh. A dry, humorless sound that echoed in my empty apartment, the sound bouncing off the bare walls. But the evidence was undeniable. Forged signatures, secret accounts, years of theft laid bare for all to see. Whispers spread through her social circle, and I watched from a distance as her perfect world began to crack. Each fracture a testament to the truth I'd unleashed. A slow unraveling that felt like justice in motion. I hired a lawyer, Miss Carter. A woman with steel gray hair and a gaze that could cut through lies. Her presence a steady anchor in the storm. We met in her office, a small space cluttered with legal books and framed degrees, the air smelling of ink and determination, a stark contrast to the opulence of Elisa's world. "This is airtight," she said, her fingers tracing the documents, her voice calm but firm, each word a reassurance. "They stole from you, Elena. We'll get it back. Every penny plus damages." I nodded, my resolve hardening. But a flicker of doubt lingered in my chest, a whisper of fear that this fight might break me. "What about the lies they're spreading?" I asked, thinking of Elisa's post, the way she'd painted me as the villain, the bitter daughter out for revenge. Miss Carter's lips curled into a grim smile, her eyes sharp as she leaned forward. "Let them talk. It'll only make their fall harder," she said, her confidence a lifeline I clung to. I spent weeks gathering more evidence. Screenshots of their messages, voicemails filled with venom, emails where Elise strategized with Julian about handling me. Each piece a brick in the wall I was building. a fortress of truth they couldn't tear down. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and tense meetings. My apartment a war room of papers and coffee cups, the air thick with the scent of ink and determination. Elise offered a settlement. A pitiful sum that wouldn't cover my student loans, delivered via a curt email that reeked of desperation. Her words a hollow attempt to buy my silence. I deleted it without a reply, my anger a steady flame in my chest, its heat fueling my resolve. Julian sent a late-night text, his words slurred with panic. "Stop this, Elena. You're ruining everything." His plea a stark contrast to the time he'd borrowed my camera for a trip, only to return it broken. His apology as hollow as his promises, his carelessness a wound that still stung. Margot showed up at my apartment unannounced, her mascara streaked with tears, her voice trembling as she pleaded for family unity. "We can fix this," she sobbed, her crimson scarf slipping from her shoulders, her desperation a mirror of the privilege she'd always taken for granted. I shut the door in her face, the click of the lock a final goodbye, my heart pounding with a mix of guilt and relief, the sound of her sobs fading as I leaned against the door, my breath ragged. The masquerade sponsors pulled out, unwilling to touch the scandal, their emails to Elise curt and professional, a quiet withdrawal that spoke volumes. Julian's hospital put him on leave, his reputation tainted, his once bright future dimming with every headline, his name whispered in medical circles with a mix of pity and scorn. Margot's internship was terminated, her dreams unraveling like a spool of thread, her social media filled with cryptic posts about betrayal, each one a feeble attempt to garner sympathy. Elise's foundation lost donors, her name whispered in hushed, scandalized tones at charity events, her legacy crumbling like a house of cards. They hired a lawyer, a slick man in a tailored suit with a smile like a shark, who sent me a contract, sign an NDA, retract my lies, and take a payout that wouldn't cover a year's rent. I burned it in my sink, the flames licking the paper as I watched their last attempt to control me turn to ash, the acrid smell of burning paper filling the air, the fire mirroring the rage in my chest, a blaze that had been smoldering for years, now roaring to life. I wasn't just fighting for money. I was fighting for every moment I'd felt small, every time I'd been told I didn't matter, every night I'd fallen asleep wondering why I wasn't enough. I thought of Nana Rose again, her warm hand in mine, her words echoing in my mind like a mantra. "You're enough." For years, I'd let them convince me I wasn't. Let their words carve out pieces of my confidence until I was a shadow of the girl Nana had believed in. I remembered a winter night when I was 20, sitting in my tiny apartment, the heat shut off because I couldn't pay the bill, while Elise threw a gala for Margot's first fashion show. I'd called her, my voice shaking, asking for help, and she'd sighed. "You'll figure it out, Elena. You always do." That night, I'd wrapped myself in a blanket and cried, the cold seeping into my bones, while across town, my family toasted to Margot's success, their laughter a distant echo I could never reach. The memory fueled me now, a reminder of why I couldn't back down, why I had to see this through. The trial loomed and I was ready. I'd spent too long in their shadows, my light dimmed by their neglect. It was time to step into the light, to reclaim the life I deserved. The trial came on a gray November morning 8 months after the masquerade. I wore a charcoal suit, my hair pulled back, my silver mask long gone. Elise sat across the courtroom, her face a mask of fury, her sapphire eyes cold and unyielding. Julian avoided my gaze, his hands clenched in his lap. Margot wasn't there, her absence a silent admission of guilt. Ms. Carter presented the evidence with lethal precision, forged documents, hidden accounts, emails where Elise called me a liability to be handled, her words a chilling reminder of her betrayal. The judge's ruling was swift, my inheritance was restored with interest. Elise and Julian were ordered to pay restitution and legal fees. Fraud charges followed, their perfect lives unraveling like a dropped stitch, each thread a testament to the lies they'd woven. I didn't cheer. I went home to my new loft, a space I'd bought with my reclaimed funds, the walls bare but full of promise. I hung a photo on the wall, a faded Polaroid of me and Nana Rose laughing in her garden, daisies in our hair, the sunlight casting a golden glow around us. It was the only family portrait I needed, a reminder of the love that had always seen me even when I couldn't see myself. My friends came over that night, Lila with her off-key singing, Marcus with his terrible puns, Sarah with a bottle of cheap wine that tasted like freedom. We laughed until my sides hurt, the sound filling the room with a warmth I'd never felt at Elise's estate, a warmth that felt like home. I'd found my family, the kind that didn't ask me to shrink, the kind that saw me for who I was, not who they wanted me to be. Looking back, I wonder if I could have walked away, taken their money, and stayed silent. But the truth wasn't just about the inheritance. It was about me, about refusing to be erased, about claiming the space I'd been denied. They lost me long before the courtroom. I just made it real. I learned that some masks hide more than faces, they hide lies, pain, and the people we pretend to be. But I'm done pretending, done hiding behind the roles they forced me into. I've stepped out of their shadows and I'm never going back. What would you do if you uncovered a lie that changed everything? Would you fight, or would you let it go? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm reading everyone, and I want to hear your story. And if you felt the weight of this journey, if you've ever had to reclaim your truth, hit that subscribe button and join me on Cheating Stories Diary for more. Let's keep peeling back the masks together, uncovering the stories that need to be told.